Good morning, all of you. I'm Dr. Lakshmi. I'm an associate professor of microbiology. Today, I would like to give a small presentation on the importance of microbiology and its significance in the day to day activities, in health, in diseases, and also the scope of microbiology for students. So, what are microorganisms? They are the minute organisms whose activities are vitally important to virtually all processes on Earth. Microorganisms are very important because they affect every aspect of our lives. They are in us, they are on us, and they are around us. Microbiology is a study of these living organisms that are too small to be visible to the naked eye, so you need microscopes to study them. This includes bacteria, archaebacteria, viruses, fungi, prions, protozoa, and algae. All these are collectively known as microbes. These microbes play key roles in nutrient cycling, in biodegradation, in biodeterioration, in the climate change, in food spoilage. They are the cause and control of diseases, and they also play a very important role in biotechnology and also in genetic engineering, whereby you change the genes, you modify the genes according to your wish so that you produce new organisms or you can improve life, you can do gene therapy to treat diseases and so on. Thanks to their versatility, these microbes can be put to work in many ways. They can make life-saving drugs. They are used in the manufacture of biofuels. They help in cleaning up of the environment, cleaning up pollution, and they are also useful in producing and processing foods and drink. Microbiologists are those people who study these microorganisms, and many of the most important discoveries that have happened in the modern day world, which have changed our lives, have been due to microbiologists. Their discoveries, like Edward Jenner and his vaccines, Alexander Fleming and the discovery of penicillin, and so on. So I'll just go into the world. I'll introduce you to microbes. So what are these? As I told you, microorganisms can be bacteria, viruses, fungi, algae. So we'll start with bacteria. These are the single-celled microbes. They are unicellular. So the cell structure is very simple. Viruses have a very even simpler cell structure. They are actually called as acellular. So in bacteria, there is no proper membrane-bound nucleus or other membrane-bound organelles. So instead they have a small single circular chromosome. The DNA is called as a chromosome here. So they also have a plasmid, an extra chromosomal DNA material, which is the one which is useful in genetic engineering. And also these carry genes which make the bacterium resistant to a certain antibiotic, and very important genes for resistance are carried in the plasmid. Bacteria are divided into 5 groups based on their shape. Of course, the cocci, the bacilli, the spirillum, the vibrio or the comma-shaped bacteria, and the spirochetes or spirally wound bacteria. These can occur either as single cells or they can occur in colonies as groups. They are found everywhere, in every habitat on the earth, be it soil, rock, oceans, or even in the Arctic snow. The hot springs where the temperature is so hot, even there scientists have found bacteria. And bacteria are approximately 10 times as many human cells as bacteria are found on the earth. And a lot of these bacterial cells are also found inside the human body. These are called as the normal microbial flora. Some of them are even very helpful for us because they give you a proper lining to your intestinal tract and help you, protect you from colonization from different pathogens. Some of the bacteria play a very important role, as I already said, in nutrient cycling. So they help in cycling of nutrients and provide them to the plants for the proper growth. So they can even act as biofertilizers. Some types, very few bacteria, are harmful to us. Some of them can cause food spoilage. They can cause damage to the crops. But others are very useful. They are incredibly useful in the production of fermented foods like yogurt and soy sauce. All these have therapeutic values also. And very few bacteria are parasites or pathogens which can cause disease in animals and in plants. So these are some of the morphological forms of bacteria that I've already mentioned: the cocci, the rods, the filamentous bacteria, the comma-shaped bacteria, and the spirochetes. So next we go to the viruses. Viruses are the smallest of all microbes. They are said to be so small that 500 million rhinoviruses, which cause common cold, can be fit into the head of a pin, a safety pin, or it is not a safety pin, these pins that you have, no, with the pin head. So they can, 500 million rhinoviruses can be fit into the head of a single pin. They are unique because they are not only alive, they are also able to multiply inside the cells of other living things. So even though they are acellular, they use the host cell inside which they can live and multiply. They cannot live with outside a living cell. So they are called as obligate intracellular parasites. A virus is made up of a core of genetic material which can be either DNA or RNA, which is surrounded by a protective coat which is called as a capsid, which is made up of proteins. Sometimes the capsid is surrounded by an additional layer, spiky layer called as the envelope. So the viruses are able to get inside the host cell and then multiply there. Only the genetic material of the virus gets into the cell. So next microorganisms that we see are the fungi. So the fungi can be single-celled. There are some forms of fungi which are multicellular also, complex multicellular organisms. Fungi also are found in any type of habitat, but mostly they live on the land, mainly in the soil or on plant material, rather than living in sea or in the fresh water. There are a group of fungi which are called as the decomposers, which grow in the soil, or they can also grow on dead plant matter, where they play an important role in the cycling of carbon and other elements. Some of these fungi are parasites of plants. They can cause diseases. In fact, the fungal diseases in crops can lead to significant monetary losses for the farmers. A very small number occur in animals. In humans, they can cause some diseases, the major ones being the skin infections like ringworm, athlete's foot, etc. The next category is your protozoa. Protozoa are single-celled organisms. They come in many shapes, different shapes and sizes. They can range from an amoeba, which can change its shape, to paramecium, which has a fixed shape and a very complex structure. They also live in a wide variety of moist habitats, so mostly in water, including freshwater, marine environments. They are also found in the soil. Some of them are parasites, so they live on other plants and animals where they can cause diseases also. Next is the algae. So the algae can exist as single cells. An example for an algae is the Chlamydomonas, for a single-celled algae. And they can also exist in chains, like for example the Spirogyra, or sometimes they are made up of many cells. For instance, Rhodymenia, the red seaweed, is an example for a multicellular algae. And most of the algae live in fresh or in sea water. So they are mostly found in water or in areas where it is very moist. In these waters, they can be either free floating as planktons, or they are attached to the bottom of the water of the layers. Some algae can grow on rocks, on soil or vegetation, as long as there is enough moisture. Some very few species of algae, they form close partnerships with algae. So these are called as the lichens. Okay, so the next part of this lecture is the applications of microbiology and the scope of microbiology. So as I have already told you, microorganisms are present. They are ubiquitous. They are present even in and on the human body. So we have a normal flora in our body, which consists of microorganisms. They live in our body. They live along with us. They cohabit, and they do not produce any harmful infections. So these are called as the normal flora. They also help us. They protect us from colonization of pathogens. So they do not allow the pathogens to colonize your body and multiply in your body and produce disease. So in that way, they are very helpful to us. The surfaces of the human body, inside and out, for example, the skin, mouth, the intestines, are all covered in millions of individual microorganisms that do not do any harm. So in fact, they've helped to protect us from becoming infected with harmful microbes. So the number of normal bacterial cells which live on the body is in the range of 100 million per individual. So this number is 10 times greater than the 10 million cells that make up a human body. Some of the microbes and the diseases that they cause are given in this table. So you know about the common cold, which is caused by rhinovirus. Apart from rhinovirus, many other viruses also. The chicken pox caused by varicella zoster, German measles, rubella, athlete's foot, of course, is by fungi. Whooping cough, plague, tuberculosis, malaria are caused by the whooping cough, bubonic plague and TB are caused by bacteria. Malaria is caused by a protozoan, Plasmodium falciparum. Ringworm, again caused by fungi, Trichophyton rubrum. So this is about the diseases caused by the bacteria. So next we go to the beneficial part, where the microbes are involved in food production. So they are mostly involved in fermented foods. This fermentation is because of the microorganisms. So the microbes associated with our food, generally we tend to give them a bad name, that is food poison causing organisms. But there are many which make us ill. On the same side, there are others also which can cause nuisance by spoiling our food. So these are called as the spoilage organisms. But without the activities of many of these microbes, there will not be food available, fermented foods. Our favorite foods like bread, cheese, beer, chocolate, wine, all these are because of the fermentative activities of microorganisms. So friend or foe, the food microbes are always on the menu. So the last part of the lecture is the scope of microbiology. This is for the students who are studying or planning to study microbiology. The scope is huge because of the involvement of the microorganisms in various fields. Because they are ubiquitous, they are found everywhere. They are also involved in so many metabolic processes, fermentations, etc. So they are present in many fields like pharmacy, medicine, clinical research, in agriculture, dairy industry, water industry, nanotechnology and chemical technology. As microbiologists, you can make careers in research and in non-research fields also. You name any field, any industry, you have vacancies there. What can you do after you do your BSc in microbiology or MSc in microbiology? You can do specializations like agricultural microbiology, industrial microbiology, evolutionary microbiology, nanomicrobiology, cellular microbiology, soil, veterinary field, generation microbiology, in virology, pharmaceutical microbiology, in water microbiology, environmental microbiology, and so as you can name any field, you have a scope there. You can do specializations there. The opportunities for students are also widespread because it is a broad subject which overlaps with other life sciences also, like immunology and biochemistry, genetic engineering, molecular biology, and so on. The work of microbiologists is relevant in a wide range of fields, including pharmaceutical biotechnology and agriculture. And we also study the microscopic infectious organisms, including viruses, bacteria, fungi, and algae. And microbiologists play a very important role in prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of infectious diseases, like the recent pandemic, COVID-19. So a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in microbiology can lead to lucrative jobs in India as well as abroad. You can also get placed in hospitals or clinical laboratories as microbiologists. You can continue in the academic field by pursuing a PhD, or you can go work in these following sectors like pharmaceutical, biotechnology industries, in academia, in the colleges and universities as professors, in clinical diagnostic laboratories, in healthcare institutions, research organizations, environmental agencies, food industry, beverage industry, chemical industry, in agricultural industry, in fisheries, You have the fishery development corporations, the aquaculture industries, and National Institute of Ocean Technology, the NIOT. So these are the scopes, and this is the importance. So I hope I've given a basic introduction to microbiology and what is the scope for the students after doing a degree course in microbiology. Thank you so much.